We are cleared for a build. Roger, over. Request vector, over.
We are clear for vector, tempered glass, light and black.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Huh?
Wait. Roger, Roger, over. Victor, it's our vector. Or two in this case. Thanks to a mix-up with UPS, got two vector machines, Clarence and Roger. So the top on the vector is tempered glass by default, but included in the box is everything you need to turn the tempered glass into a filtered vent. There's also a little bit of breathing room at the back, so the top, where it's at an angle, gives you a vent at the back. Wouldn't be terrific airflow, at least not as terrific as this, but there's also a little more sound dampening than an open filter. So depending on what your preferences are, you've got options right in the box. This is the tempered glass blackout edition. Blackout. I did that already on another Fractal video, but that's cool because all of their different cases are available, or a lot of their different cases are available in the blackout configurations. Fractal's also recently gotten into the power supply game. So level 1, how to read the power supply labels video, anyone? Yeah, we're gonna be putting an 860 watt power supply in this build, which is overkill, unless maybe I'm running like dual 2080 Ti's and the 3950X and 128 gigs of memory and a bunch of spinning rust, and there's lots of room for spinning rust in these vector cases. This power supply is utterly redonkulous. It is got a Fractal fan built in, it's fully modular, it's in a nice attractive metal case. It's truly 860 watts on the 12 volt rail, and everything else is just bonus. Now, one reason that you might want to use a massively overspec'd power supply in a build like this is the 0 RPM fan mode. There's a rocker switch right in the front of the power supply, and the fan will actually turn off as long as the amount of wattage through the power supply is low enough that the components in the power supply can be passively cooled. So 860 watts, if you're using, around 400 or 500 watts, the fan doesn't even necessarily need to spin in the power supply. Now, if you do want some airflow through the rest of your case because your power supply is moving air, depending on how you've got it oriented or whatever, you can turn it on so that your power supply is always getting at least some airflow, and the Fractal fans are very quiet. We get the Tai Chi, we get the 3700X, we get the Ion, plus 860p. This is turning into a right proper build. Even though the side panels are secured with thumb screws, they got these little ball joint things in, so they'll snap right in and remove. If you want toolless side removal, you totally can, or, well, not toolless, but screwless side removal. One of the nice things about having a fully modular power supply is that you can remove the thing off the back here, pull and route all of the cables, and then hook them up right here, and then just slide the power supply in. So otherwise your power supply is gonna be kind of halfway hanging out here, or you gotta plug up the cables in and then route them. But if the cables are long enough, being able to do it this way is a little easier, I think. All right, let's set that aside and prep our motherboard. Now, the final plan for this system is to install the 3950X, the X570 Tai Chi. So I'm gonna be using this as a little bit of a placeholder, but it's fine. The Tai Chi comes with the back plate pre-installed, so we don't have to worry about that. We can just plop it right in. Now you may be wondering, where are the screws for the motherboard? Well, they're in the accessory box. If you read the manual, you'd know that. Nice. In the accessory box with the Vector, you get a polishing cloth for cleaning your glass. Good job, Fractal. Also in the accessory box is the lovely Fractal digital RGB control thingy. So if you'd like to have some buttons to control your stuff, you totally can. Don't like your motherboard control? Not a problem. Just like Lego, except very more expensive. The next thing is routing your USB-C and USB 3 and front panel and digital LED strip. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh man, that USB-C connector is in the way of your graphics card. Not to worry. One, ASRock will send you a right angle connector to solve this little problem. Two, this case supports vertical GPU mounting. So as you can see, the Vector internally is basically identical to the other Fractal cases that are this form factor. Now there are a few small tweaks, but you still got the same fan controller that we've come to all know and love, which I'm actually using with the Tai Chi because it doesn't have super convenient fan connectors for the front part, like for the front fans on the Fractal case here. You got just a hair more clearance at the top for a top mounted radiator, although I'm still going to recommend like a 240 or a 360 radiator for the top. I think a 280 millimeter cooler in this case works better at the front, but my preference for an all-in-one radiator is at the top exhausting air out, because you bring in fresh air from the front and you're going to heat the air going into the case. I just don't like that on principle. The vents and intake at the front are a little, a little different than the other cases. It seems like that, just if you just look at the raw surface area and you just eyeball it, you would look at it and say, this is a little less surface area than say the Define S2, and much less than, like the Meshify S2, because the Meshify, the whole front's open, and I love that case. But with this case, you got the down angled vents, and you've got the dust filters that are in the front part. The front part's magnetic here. And you've got the cool RGB connection with the magnetic connectors, which is really an incredibly nice touch. But you might think, oh, the thermals, what about the thermals? And I think that this case probably is a little worse, but it doesn't really bear out in the data from this one system. And admittedly, this system is not gonna produce a lot of heat. The 5700 with the 3700X, well 2700X and 3700X and different testing, it just doesn't produce a lot of heat in the first place. So even with the two fans in the front on the Vector, it is sufficient to cool this system without really a lot of headache. With the power supply, the way that I've got it pointed, it's drawing air in from the bottom and exhausting it out the back. It's basically its own thing as far as that goes. Just like all the other Fractal cases, there's room to mount fans in the bottom. You can switch out the tempered glass top for more ventilation, so that your entire radiator is not going to vent with this tiny little vent in the back. No, that's not how that works. But yeah, so we've got USB Type-C, headphone, microphone, two USB 3.0 ports, and a power and reset button. And RGB. So much RGB. You get the digital RGB strip along the front, the edge, and then all along the top. So it is a nice aesthetic touch, and it's very cool that it's digital. Just like other Fractal cases, you can reconfigure this area here as it's set up now. It'll hold 6 3.5-inch bays with pretty much unlimited GPU length, because the GPU can actually go inside this little alcove. But if you want to move this, like take this all apart and move this to the back, you'll still have room for 2 3.5-inch drives hanging vertically on the back of this. One curious omission is the hard drive light. There is no hard drive activity LED. It's just, you get the power light, and you could use the power light as a hard drive activity LED, which is what I've elected to do, but there's not two LEDs. Here's the other system with the dark tempered glass. That static cling. As you can see with the dark tempered glass, it's a lot harder to see what's going on in the system. Of course, get the Intermax RGB cooler along with the Trident Z G-Skill memory, Trident Z Neo. Actually, this is an older system, so this is a Threadripper system. And I've got the Intermax radiator in the front in a push-pull configuration. The 280, as suspected, the 280 millimeter in the top, just not a good idea. 360 in the top, maybe. 240 in the top, sure. But 280 in the top? No, I don't think so. I do have it in the push-pull configuration. Been getting pretty good thermals out of the Intermax, at least until the the fluid gives out. I mean, the trick with these, a lot of people on our forum have been complaining about these Intermax, even the second gen, where the fluid, I don't know, that's a story for another time. If you swap the fluid and, put a couple of drops of iodide in there, it's fine, but yeah, that's a story for another time. Threadripper 2950X in this system, running an overnight torture test, didn't overheat. Did get a little toasty, but did not overheat. And that's with PBO on. So the 2950 was really really working pretty hard. The push-pull configuration in the front helped ramp the static pressure. I think Noctua fans or some of the high static pressure fans would probably help pull the air in through the filter and through the rest of it. I mean, it's just rule of thumb. I feel like probably everybody knows that, but as your filters get a little dirty, then the air is going to be a little more resistive. So you want to make sure that your system is clean. In terms of like, do you like the light tempered glass or the dark tempered glass? I don't know, it's subjective. The whole RGB thing is subjective. Because this motherboard didn't have the RGB header for digital header, I did plug in the Fractal push button thing, and I was able to do this chase lights thing. And the chase thing, especially in monochrome red, makes me think Knight Rider. Should mod one of these with some AI, and should try to train an AI on that guy's voice who played Knight Rider, and then never mind. I'm Wendell, this is level 1. This has been a first look at the Fractal Vector RS case. I mean, it's the same case, it's just different accoutrement. So it's an interesting product strategy that Fractal has, but I mean, I like these cases. They got the smaller cases, which are fine, and then they get the larger cases that give you a lot more room to move around and a lot more expansion capabilities. Now with the push-pull configuration, I did have to give up most of my 3.5-inch bays. Still got 3, which is not bad, but yeah, it's pretty swanky. All right, I'll catch you later.